In competitive Pokemon, most popular builds on popular Pokemon will consist of the best options in the entire game. Think of Choice Specs Dragapult with Draco Meteor and Shadow Ball, or Choice Scarf Landorus Therian with Earthquake and U-Turn. These are expected item choices and expected move choices on popular and powerful Pokemon. But sometimes competitive Pokemon gets weird, and in an effort to outplay or surprise their opponents, competitive players will look at bizarre options in Pokemon's movesets that probably were not meant for endgame or competitive use. Or they will use sets that don't seem to play to the Pokemon's strengths, like running a special attacking set on a Pokemon with high physical attack. Surprise value is a big deal in Pokemon, and sometimes that means using absolutely every tool at your disposal, even if they seem terrible on the surface. Let's take a look at some weird and unusual competitive Pokemon sets that have surprised and shocked competitive players over the years. I am dangerously close to reaching the milestone of 100,000 subscribers. If I achieve this, I will personally send the Pokemon Muck $1 million US. Please subscribe to the channel urgently so we can make this happen as quickly as possible. Thank you. One of the funniest examples of a genuine competitive set that looks really weird and always shocks people a little bit when they learn of it is Choice Band Flygon with the move Gust. Gust is an early game flying type attack with only 40 power. It's used by Pidgey on Route 1. You would never expect this to come up in a competitive context, and it's quickly outclassed by other options like Drill Peck or whatever. But this is the only flying coverage move that Flygon gets, and this is used as a way to hit two relevant Pokemon in the Gen 3 metagame, Breloom and Heracross, who are both ×4 weak to flying. So even this weak flying type attack, Gust, is a decent option right here to hit these specific targets. It may still seem like an oddly specific thing to run on Choice Band Flygon. I mean, surely there's better options on this, right? 3 of this Pokemon's move slots are usually automatic for the Choice Band set anyway, and they are Earthquake, Rock Slide, and Hidden Power Bug. Earthquake and Rock Slide are staples of many physical attackers. It's a great complementary combo. Hidden Power Bug is fantastic coverage in Gen 3, allowing you to hit Celebi for ×4 super effective damage, and many other common Pokemon like Starmie, Claydol, etc. The 4th move slot is kind of hard to fill though. Many Pokemon suffer from something called 4 move slot syndrome, where they have so many options then they can't choose just 4. Flygon is having the reverse problem, where it's kind of struggling to figure out what to even put in its 4th move slot. Maybe it wishes it had less move slots. One possible option is Double Edge, just for neutral physical damage with recoil attached. Can be an okay choice, but rarely ever gets clicked, especially because Flygon invites in a lot of Pokemon that just shrug this off, such as Skarmory, Gengar, etc. Toxic could be an okay choice, just as a way to status something that is otherwise a switch-in, but this actually tends to not be that good on Choice Band Flygon. Sometimes Toxic is okay on choice sets for that purpose, but you know, if you're inviting in a bulky water type or something like Suicune or Melodic, Choice Band Earthquake actually hits really hard right there against many common physical walls. And the other common switch-ins of Skarmory and Gengar are completely immune to Toxic, as are many possible switch-ins. Another viable choice on this set is Fire Blast, just as a mix option to hit Skarmory or Forretress or something like that. But that is inaccurate, it rarely comes up. Gust actually ends up being probably the most useful of all of these 4th move slot options, because Breloom and Heracross are pretty common, and you are kind of awkward against them. They both shrug off Earthquake, they resist Earthquake. They shrug off Rock Slide pretty well as well. Hidden Power Bug is going to hit Breloom neutrally, but you know, not the greatest thing in the world. They live all of these 3 options, so being able to just one-hit them is actually quite nice. So Flygon ends up running this crappy early game flying type move for lack of much better in its move set, and also because actually in certain situations it's pretty good. It does the job against 2 specific opponents, and sometimes that's all you need. And isn't that funny? Another crazy set that you sometimes see in Gen 3 OU is Physical Gengar. And this is really just one of many audible Gengar sets you can see in Gen 3. I have a whole almost 30-minute video just about Gengar in Gen 3. I recommend you check that out, because there's about 1 billion ways to use Gengar in this format. Many of them odd. But Physical Gengar seems to go against the whole design of the Pokemon. I mean, the guy has 65 base attack and 130 base special attack. You're supposed to use this as a special attacker, but to use this as a physical attacker is the ultimate unexpected option, isn't it? And that's where the beauty of such a thing lies. Gengar has access to Explosion in Gen 3, which is often just used on it even without attack investment because it's a good move. It hits really hard even if your attack sucks because of its monstrous base power in the early gens. With 250 power and a defense halving effect on top, it just deals incredible damage. And it cancels their turn because in Gen 3, if you faint, the enemy can't act, so it has that disruption effect as well. But you can also run attack investment on this to hit even harder with it, and that can be fantastic. Gengar can explode against Blissey, sometimes KOing it depending on the set outright, but with this EV spread of 184 in attack, you can explode and then do a guaranteed Dugtrio follow-up for an Earthquake to just get rid of Blissey, which can be fantastic if you have special threats that hate Blissey on your team, like Zapdos, Moltres, etc. You can do a similar thing versus Snorlax, who can sometimes be tough to get rid of. You can just blow up against it and do the Dug follow-up. Gengar also has the move Focus Punch, which is a 150 power fighting type attack with a catch to it. If you get hit by any attack while you're tightening your focus, the move will stop and nothing will happen. So basically, you use Focus Punch if you are reading that the enemy will not attack you. If they use a utility move or switch out, Focus Punch will deal massive damage with a high reward. And even though Gengar's attack stat sucks, Focus Punch has a high enough base power that it can actually be really good. Especially because Gengar tends to invite in things that are weak to fighting, such as Tyranitar. Pursuit Tyranitar is one of the most common ways to eliminate Gengar, and Focus Punch, with a bit of attack investment, will just simply destroy such a switch-in. Other common Gengar switch-ins include Blissey, who is also weak to fighting and very poor defensively, and Snorlax. None of these Pokemon are expecting Gengar to use a physical move, and all of them are weak to fighting, making Focus Punch kind of a perfect thing to click here, isn't it? Sometimes Gengar can also catch an incoming Houndoom or Umbreon, some more niche anti-Gengar Pokemon that are also weak to fighting when you know it. Gengar can even just use Brick Break if it wants a direct fighting type attack, and with a bit of attack investment, this does do significant damage to Tyranitar specifically. If you are running Focus Punch, it's common to also run Hypnosis, because putting them to sleep is a safe way to allow a Focus Punch follow-up, since they can't attack you while they're asleep. So yeah, physical Gengar is somewhat usable as a surprise option in Gen 3. It's not the most consistent or great way to use Gengar, but it is surprisingly good for its surprise value and the interactions it invites that get punished by physical options. Another weird set that is sometimes used in Gen 3 is Hidden Power Steel Snorlax. Now this is quite odd because, you know, usually a curse physical sweeper like Snorlax wants to use stab moves, you know, return, body slam, powerful normal type attacks that get boosted from the same type attack bonus, or physical coverage like Earthquake or Shadow Ball as well. Hidden Power Steel seems like a completely random choice. It's only 70 base power. Steel is not the best attacking type in the world, so why use this exactly? Well, in Gen 3, Hidden Power Steel on this particular set happens to be an okay choice if Hidden Power Steel is your only attack, because it will be able to neutrally hit the most amount of things. Snorlax is commonly paired with Magneton, who eliminates Skarmory, so Skarmory resisting Steel is not a problem if you just get rid of it. Same deal against Thoritrus and Metagross, who you can maneuver around and eliminate with Mag oftentimes. Hidden Power Steel is crucially super effective against Tyranitar, which a normal type attack is not, and also it can hit Gengar for neutral damage. Gengar will often wall certain Snorlax sets, especially mono attacking sets that rely specifically on normal stamp. But Hidden Power Steel has the benefit of hitting Tyranitar and Gengar as a mid-ground option. And Snorlax doesn't have anything else that hits both of those, at least with one attack, because Earthquake hits Tyranitar, but not Gengar. Brick Break hits Tyranitar, but not Gengar. Shadow Ball hits Gengar, but not Tyranitar. Hidden Power Steel is the only option that hits both pretty decently, and also is okay neutral coverage against most of the other Pokemon in the format. Yes, Pokemon like Melodic will be able to shrug off a resisted Steel hit, but the thing about Snorlax is it's a defensive machine that can just curse and rest up to 1,000,000. And eventually, you probably are going to 1v1 passive Pokemon like that, just through sheer numbers. So actually, this can be an alright win condition set. It's not the most common way to use Snorlax, but this is sometimes used for its ability to widely hit as many things as possible in a single attacking move slot, which allows you to run Sleep Talk instead of a second physical coverage move, which makes you more proactively threatening. And the final set from Gen 3, I promise, no more Gen 3. But this one is cool, I thought it deserved a shout out. Dragon Dance counter Tyranitar. This must seem completely bizarre at a glance because counter, what is that doing on a physical sweeper set? Wouldn't you rather run an attack? This is a Dragon Dance sweeper. Why are you randomly running counter? That's a move that should be used on a physical wall. Well, Tyranitar with this particular amount of bulk is EV'd to live specific physical hits from full against common checks. These include Meteor Mash from Metagross, Earthquake from Choice Band Dugtrio, Earthquake from Swampert, Flygon, etc. Tyranitar will often come in and invite in these specific Pokemon. You select Dragon Dance, and the last thing on the planet they're expecting is you having counter. They're probably expecting you're a full offensive set. So you attack them, barely live on a sliver of HP, and you hit them with the surprise KO with counter. And this opens up everything, because that's probably their main Tyranitar check that just got eliminated. So this is a way for Tyranitar to completely get the jump on many of its checks. It also works versus Claydol. This is especially good at baiting Metagross, because Metagross will just mash against Tyranitar every time if it comes in. So by inviting in these things that are trying to defeat you and check you super effectively, you can take the hit, counter, and now you have just eliminated your threat. You have a Dragon Dance, and you might even just win on the spot off that. I think it's a pretty cool option on Dragon Dance Tyranitar, and a very creative and unusual use of the move counter that I also think is really cool. Now this right here is a Gen 4 set, and while this is probably not a widely used meta set or anything, a player called Cho Toshio managed to get a top ladder position with this very set, and I think it's actually a pretty interesting idea. And this is Choice Scarf Offensive Skarmory. Skarmory is of course a physical wall. It is designed so with a massive defense stat, all utility move pool with options like Roost for healing, Spikes and Stealth Rock, Toxic, etc. Whirlwind. This is supposed to be used as a physical defensive Pokemon. It was designed in such a way. So using this as a Choice Scarf attacker with attack investment is pretty weird. But this is kind of an interesting lead in Gen 4. You can lead off with this and unexpectedly outrun many other common leads and get early spikes on the field. And because Skarmory is immune to so much of the residual damage of Gen 4, like Sandstorm damage, Spikes damage, it's immune to Earthquake, etc. Even without any bulk investment, Skarmory is a pretty sturdy guy. It can survive into the mid-game. So you start off with this aggressive hazard setting plan that gets things moving. And then in the mid-game, you can catch people off guard with good old Stab Brave Bird. And, you know, with the stab damage on this, the high base power, and your attack investment, as well as an unexpectedly high speed for Skarmory, this can do some real work in the mid to late game, and actually even be an end game cleaner. So it almost has dual roles as an aggressive hazard setting lead and a mid game attacker, and I think it sounds pretty good. It's even running Sleep Talk as an anti-sleep Pokemon, so you can just send this in against Breloom. Now you have a fast Sleep Talk Pokemon that can do one of three good options, those being Brave Bird, Spikes, or Whirlwind, and Whirlwind will have speed on it because Sleep Talk bypasses the negative priority on Whirlwind. The Skarmory becomes a decent sleep, soaker, mid-game threat, and early-game hazard setter all in one. Actually, pretty creative set here, pretty cool set, and a unique way to use what is usually just a physical wall. Now, in competitive Pokemon, there are sometimes instances where you want to inflict status onto yourself with the Flame Orb or Toxic Orb items. A common way to take advantage of being self-statused is if you have the ability Guts, which grants an attack bonus if you are statused. So burning yourself with a Flame Orb and getting a Guts boost is a good strategy. Another example is Gliscor with its Poison Heal, poisoning itself to get the Chip Heal effect online. But there's another reason you might want to burn yourself or toxic yourself with either of these self-inflicting status orbs, and that is if you have the move Psycho Shift. Psycho Shift is a move that transfers a status ailment from you to the target. This doubles not only as a form of status curing, but allows you to inflict status that you might not otherwise have. And a Pokemon like Cresselia in Gen 4 OU, a pretty niche pick much of the time, doesn't have Will-O-Wisp or a way to inflict burn. But if you just give yourself a Flame Orb, you can burn yourself and then transfer that burn to the enemy, which is kind of good sometimes, even though you suffer from the chip damage of burning yourself. And Flame Orb also consistently reapplies every turn, so you're going to keep burning yourself. Being able to burn enemies, especially with a Pokemon as defensively fantastic as Cresselia, is pretty damn good. You can destroy threats like Gyarados, Scizor, even Tyranitar trying to come in. Many of the things that probably want to come in and threaten you after you've switched in defensively are going to get incredibly punished by a Flame Orb Psycho Shift interaction. Getting burned is devastating for most of the things that want to come in and punish Cresselia, so it's kind of brilliant in a way.
This set is running Rest as a way to heal up. Cresselia unfortunately can't really use Moonlight in a world where permanent sand is so common, but Rest will work, and it will also serve to shield you from your own burn, funnily enough, that you're inflicting upon yourself all the time, if that ever becomes a problem. Another Pokemon that can do this is Latias. Latias can inflict burn on itself with a Flame Orb and use Psycho Shift. The Flame Orb also serves to kind of shield you from being toxic poisoned, because if you're already statused, you can't be poisoned or slept even. So maybe that makes Cresselia a pretty nice Breloom switch in. You're already burned and you're threatening to Ice Beam them or Psycho Shift burn, whatever the switch in is. So that's pretty fun, isn't it? A world where burning yourself on purpose is actually advantageous. Who would have thought such a thing? And shout out to the player Unfunny Meme from Smogon, who may not have been the first to think of this set, but did post about it here. In a similar vein to the way Psycho Shift allows Pokemon to inflict burn against enemies when they otherwise couldn't, sometimes the move Fling can be used for a similar effect. Fling is a move that simply throws your held item at the enemy, and depending on what held item you have, the effects of this attack will be different. They'll vary in power, secondary effect, etc. So Fling, with different items equipped, can grant you options that you never would have had previously and really catch enemies off guard. And one of the best ways to use the move Fling is with Light Ball. Light Ball is the signature item of Pikachu. It can only be used by Pikachu for the double attack effect. Pikachu gets double attack and special attack with this equipped, but can also be used with Fling to inflict paralysis against the enemy. So Gliscor here, for example, can use Fling with a Light Ball. It will have a base power of only 30, but it has a 100% chance to paralyze. And it is a dark type attack. So Fling is actually a pretty cool way to inflict surprise paralysis on something, which can have incredibly high value. What's nice about Fling in particular is that it is able to hit ground types and paralyze them. Thunder Wave, the usual paralysis inflicting move, will not affect ground types or Pokemon with the ability Volt Absorb because they are immune to electric. But Fling bypasses these and can inflict paralysis against anything in the game. So not only is it unexpected for Gliscor to be able to paralyze something, it's unexpected for Gliscor to be able to paralyze things that are usually immune to such an effect. The downside of this, of course, is that it only works once. You fling the item, you paralyze something, your item is then expended, and you can't do it ever again. So you get one shot at this, but that can have a high impact, especially because of the surprise value of such a move. And Fling can be used for other effects too. If you fling a big nugget, it'll be 130 power massive attack. That can actually be pretty cool. You can fling a Flame Orb to inflict burn. You can fling a King's Rock to 100% flinch. That's probably not that good just for one interaction, but maybe it could pass a turn in a crucial situation. You never know. Fling is one of those awesome moves that can give Pokemon a single use move that they shouldn't otherwise have. And I really like move options like this. That's just one unexpected big surprise hit that can make all the difference in the right situation. I love that this is an option, and it's a really cool move in my opinion. And one of the funniest examples of a weird Pokemon set from recent memory is this right here. Trick Pecha Berry Gholdengo. Pecha Berry is a berry item, a consumable item that just cures poison once. Seems like a strange choice on a Pokemon that is genuinely immune to status and immune to poison anyway because of a steel typing. So why would this be running a poison cure berry? Well, this set actually aims to give this berry to a particular enemy. Gliscor is a Pokemon that benefits from being poisoned. It has poison heal. So it inflicts poison on itself with its toxic orb to get the effects of poison heal for chip healing. Gholdengo often invites in Gliscor. It's bulky, it threatens it with ground type attacks. So Gholdengo can sneakily trick this poison cure berry onto Gliscor and cure their poison, which is actually bad for them and ruins their whole thing. Toxic Orb gets stolen away as well. You have their Toxic Orb and you don't mind having a Toxic Orb because you can't be poisoned, remember. So their poison gets cured, their poison can't be reapplied, and now their Gliscor is way worse. It can't chip heal, it doesn't have the status immunity effect of being poisoned. So this is a really crazy anti-Gliscor set that was running around back when Gliscor was at peak dominance, before some of the more recent DLCs, when Gliscor just got added and it was absolutely going crazy in the metagame. It was so prolific that this set right here was just, people were absolutely clamoring for any Gliscor counterplay, and this rose up as something to disrupt Gliscor, who was just absolutely everywhere. And what a funny way to do so. Giving them a poison cure berry so they don't get poisoned by their own toxic orb. If that's not a crazy set, I don't know what is. So this was genuinely a cool anti-Gliscor tech for a time. It probably still works. And what's even cooler about this is because you get the toxic orb, if you ever eliminate their Gliscor, you can trick a toxic orb onto something and poison them. It's actually a pretty fun way to get double value out of trick right there. And then you get their item too. So there you have it, folks. Some weird sets from throughout Pokemon history that look bizarre but have some sort of purpose behind them that either punishes something specific or just gets some good surprise value here and there. What did you think of my selections here? What are some that I missed? Let me know down below in the comments, and thank you as always for watching.